Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast, where we show you how to break free from the grind and achieve real financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Ryan D. Lee, and I've helped thousands turn income into cash flow, trade fake money for real assets, and take back control over their time, their wealth, and ultimately their life. Each week, you'll get strategy, tools, and mindset to build your own passive income machine. So my friends, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. All right, my friend. Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast number 6. Today, we have a very special topic for you to consider. We have your financial freedom math. It's how you can use math to calculate your very own strike number. Now, what is a strike number, you might be asking? Well, that's the perfect question for you to be asking right now, because a strike number is literally your ability to have enough income coming in to walk away from whatever active endeavors you're focusing on right now. Whether you have a job and you're getting a paycheck, whether you have a business and you've got, profits coming from your business, or you have any other source of income, a strike number is the minimum amount of income that you need coming in today to walk away and to give yourself more options and more freedom with your time. So listen, my friends, the reality of it is, most people don't understand what their freedom costs. They've never sat down to do the math or think about strategically what they're trying to accomplish. And without that understanding in mind, many people feel lost. They feel stuck inside of their retirement plan because they don't know if they're on track. They don't know if they're off track. They don't know if they have enough money. They don't know what to do to bridge the gap from where they're at to where they want to be. Your strike number is the exact amount of money that you need. Your monthly passive income required to own your time. It is the answer to the problem that so many people face. Now, here's the reality that most people are facing when it comes to retirement. You trade the better days, months, weeks, and ultimately years of your life trading your time for money. And if you're like most Americans, you put away maybe 5% of what you make into some mystical account, whether that's a 401k, whether that's a brokerage account, an IRA, whether it's a piece of real estate, or any combination of the above. Most people take a small portion of what they make, they put it in some growth-related vehicle, and they hope for the best. They hope for tomorrow. And they think that somehow, some way, when they arrive at age 65, that they're going to have some mystical amount of money that will give them the ability to retire, and B, the confidence that they're not going to run out of money in retirement. Imagine this. Imagine sitting on the precipice, stepping across the threshold, going from active income to passive income, going from working to pay for your lifestyle to having your assets pay for your lifestyle. What would be the number one fear that you would have stepping into that world? Well, if you're like 70% plus of the people who are already retired, their number one fear is running out of money before they run out of time. And so how much money you need to have is ultimately this vague idea of a question. I want you to consider what the challenge ultimately is in retirement planning. Let me ask you this. How much money do you need to be able to retire? I mean, really, it's the only question that actually matters. No other question even comes close to the answer to that question. How much money do you need to be able to retire? And the fact that you don't have an immediate answer to that question underscores the problem that so many people are facing. So let me help you understand the answer to that question today. And we're going to do this in two different ways. We're going to first talk about the traditional pathway to retirement planning. Then we're going to talk about the passive income machine and why the passive income machine investment system was set up. It was set up to give you the answer to the question. So let's go back to the idea. If you're ready to retire tomorrow, let me give you an analogy, okay? If you were, let's say you were on a boat and the boat capsized, crashed, and you were cast off adrift and you landed on a deserted island. And on this island, there was plenty of food, tropical plants, berries, bananas, whatever, just plenty of food. But to the best of your knowledge, there was no source of fresh drinking water. And after a day of gorging yourself on food, wondering when you're going to be rescued, another day goes by, and you're kind of wondering, if you're going to die on this island. Now, you're sitting on the beach contemplating your mortality as you see something floating in the distance. As it floats, it gets closer and closer and closer until you realize it's a barrel, and it comes right up to the shore where you're sitting. You run down to the ocean to see, or don't go, run down to the beach to see what happened, and you crack open the barrel, and to your surprise, this barrel is filled with fresh drinking water. Now, you're parched. You've been on this island for the last couple of days, and you're about to plunge your head in and take a big old gulp of water. But I want you to imagine what's going to go through your head before you take a big old sip of water. Well, if you're stranded on an island and you don't know when you're going to get off, and you don't know if and when it ever rains to fill up that bucket or that barrel, you're going to stop from drinking as much water as you want and start to think about rationing your water because you don't know how long the water needs to last. Well, this is the biggest challenge with retirement planning. Most people, when they put their money in a 401k and an IRA, they get a market-based return, they track their net worth, they focus on the return on investment, and they watch their balance grow over time. And whether they have $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, they start to feel like they're making progress. But the biggest question that you have to be answering is how much income will that asset base deliver for you? Go back to the original question. How much do you need to retire? Until you know the answer to how much income the asset will deliver for you, it's an unknowable question. And you're going to feel just like you are stranded on that desert island before you ever walk away into retirement and start taking income. You're going to wonder, how long does this money need to last? Is there ever an opportunity to fill that bucket back up, or am I going to run out of money before I die? So traditional financial planning, they don't really have a good solution to this problem. In fact, if they do have a solution, and they do, it's kept hidden and secret from you. And you might wonder, well, why would traditional financial planning not want me to know the answer to that question? Because it underscores the problem with exactly what you're doing. Let me give you an example, okay? If you had two buckets of money, and one bucket, just based on where that money was allocated, could give you $80,000 a year of income. And the other bucket of money, having the exact same sum of money, let's just say $1 million in that, the other bucket could only give you $40,000 a year in income. Knowing that you've got two buckets of money and one is capable of producing twice the amount of spendable income, which bucket would you choose? Well, you would obviously choose the bucket that gives you the most income. Here is the problem with traditional financial planning. Let's imagine you've got $1 million in a 401k and you're getting ready to retire tomorrow. Okay, if that's true, the question you should be asking is, well, do I have enough to retire? How much income will my 401k deliver for me to ensure that I never run out of money in retirement? And the challenge to this problem is it's based on math. I want you to imagine a possibility. Let's say you retired, and the very next day you retired, you start taking income out of your 401k, because obviously that's what's going to produce your lifestyle, right? That's what's going to pay the bills and send you on the vacations and pay for your golf course fees. So you start taking income out of your 401k, but 6 months, let's even go 12 months into your retirement, the market does what the market always does. Within a given period of time, it crashes. You lose money in your account, and because you're retired, you have to take money from your account. What happens in that scenario? Well, you have a double negative impact. Your account is hit from both sides. You took money out of that account, and the market went down in account balance. So to solve that problem, to ensure that when you're in a volatile account that you don't take out too much money, the traditional financial planning method, they have what's called a 4% rule. Now, again, most financial advisors will do everything within their financial power to hide this solution from you. Because once you understand the math behind this rule, you realize it is almost mathematically impossible for you to be able to retire, my friends. What this means is no matter how much money you have in your market-based accounts, the most you should take out of that account is 4%. If you take out more than 4% out of that account, you run the risk of taking out too much money and having outlive your money and running out of money sometime in retirement. And think about when that would be. If you ran out of money in retirement, it's probably not going to be when you're young and healthy. It's probably going to be when you're 15, 20 years down the road and you're unable to return to work even if you wanted to. You've lost your skills, you've lost time in the marketplace, and you're unable to earn an income. So you run out of money when you can least afford to run out of money. And this is most people's worst fear, is having to be that Walmart greeter standing there, smiling at people as they walk by because you are out of money in retirement. So So what this ultimately means is the 4% rule is no matter what you have in your account, if you only take a 4% distribution rate, then you give yourself a higher, not a guarantee, but a higher probability of not running out of money in retirement. So let's go back to our equation of $1 million in a bucket. 4% on $1 million is only $40,000 a year. $40,000 a year. I mean, imagine only being able to retire on $40,000 a year. This is what you're facing in traditional financial planning. I mean, would you ever imagine that if that $1 million account balance could only deliver for you $40,000 a year in income? Well, that's what happens when you do not focus on the right appropriate metric for your retirement. When you focus on net worth or rate of return, you lose sight of what matters most. How much income does an asset deliver for you? Let me further expound the problem so I can ultimately give you the solution, because with context, you'll understand how powerful the solution actually is. So let's say that the market loses 10%. Let's say you've got that $1 million account balance and it loses 10%. That means in that year, you would lose $100,000. If you wanted to get your account back to break even, back to $1 million the following year, you would have to earn an 11% return, right? Because you're earning a higher return on a smaller portfolio. Now you're earning 11% on $900,000, and that's what's going to get you back to the million. But again, my friends, if all you're doing is spending a minimum of 4%, so if you had $1 million, you lost $100,000 because of a 10% drop in the market, and you took out $40,000 of income in that year, to get back to the original $1 million the following year, you'd have to earn a 26% rate of return. Let's compound that even more. If you had a 20% loss in the market the following year, you'd have to earn a 25% return in the market to get back to break even. And if you're at a 4% distribution rate, you'd have to earn a 42% return to get back to break even. So when the market loses, you start yourself on a negative downward spiral that most retirement accounts cannot come out of. So if we want to reverse this math around, now that we understand that the 4% rule is what governs how much income you can take out of traditional financial planning accounts, if you wanted $150,000 a year in income, you would divide that by 4%, letting you know that you would have to have $3.7 million in asset value. $3.7 million in asset value to generate for you $150,000 a year of income without any guarantee that you won't run out of money, without any guarantee that taxes won't go up, without any guarantee that inflation won't wreck your retirement plan. So my friends, this is why we created the passive income machine. This is why savvy investors focus on the thing that actually matters, because when you can narrow in your sight to the one thing that you're saving for, which is income, you can start to eliminate options from your view that don't deliver the best streams of income. Now, I'm not saying that the market is not a way to grow your money. It is. Historically, over time, the market's going to earn you 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8% in an overall return. But when you fast forward to the end and realize that of how it's capable of generating income, even if you're earning a relatively good return, it will never help you become financially free. I mean, it's mathematically impossible for 99.9% of Americans today to accumulate, to save enough money to be financially free if the most you can take out is 4%. So the passive income machine, it shifts our lens of focus to income, to cash flow. We start focusing on assets that give us the most optimal stream of income that comes out every single month. And the thing that we like about the way we do things, obviously, is number one, we're doing it right. I'm just kidding. No, actually, I'm not. I'm not kidding. But I do want you to understand we're focused on building a system that's going to empower you to get exactly what you want, which is income. So the reality of it is we use life insurance, high cash value life insurance, combined with equity producing, cash flow producing real estate. The benefit of these two asset classes together is it produces a tax efficient stream of income without you ever having to liquidate the asset. This is the main advantage of having an income base without having to leverage or without having to liquidate the asset. In the 401k example, success is just not running out of money, which means you're slowly draining your account, hoping with your fingers crossed that you won't run out of money at some point in the retirement. But the second thing that allows us to accomplish what we accomplish so much faster is we're buying assets that align with the tax code. Let's go back to the original model. If you're putting your money in the market, you're more than likely doing it in some form of a tax deferred account. Because why? You know why? Because you've been told that you defer your taxes and you'll retire in a lower tax bracket. Now, I want to break the news to you, and I think I shared this in another episode. There isn't a retirement tax bracket. There is no such thing as going into a lower tax bracket in retirement. All that really means, the only way you actually retire in a lower tax bracket is if you retire poorer than you are today. But the good news is with the passive income machine, you are already 30% closer to your desired income than you thought possible. And the reason for that, we eliminate taxes in the future versus deferring. Hey, just slide in here really quick. I hope you're loving the show and taking some serious notes, because everything you're learning right now leads directly to the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. It's the event of the year. If you're ready to stop dreaming and start living financially free, we have early registration open right now with an exclusive bonus that is too good to pass up. So click the link in the description or just head over to retireintenyears.com and grab your spot, and let's make this year the year that everything changes. Now, back to the show. I want you to imagine this, okay? Let me give you a target to shoot for right now. If you are making $120,000 a year, and let's just say this is W-2 income, $120,000 a year, how much of that money is actually hitting your bottom line that you're spending on a monthly basis? And, without understanding this, again, we make the pie so much bigger than it needs to be. We put our money in tax deferred accounts because we know that we have to pay 20, 25%, 30% of what we're going to take out in taxes. So we have to build this really big balance. But consider this, okay? Consider this for just a moment. If you were putting your money in a location, the vault and real estate, that could deliver for you tax-free income, then here's the scenario. If you're making $120,000 a year, technically what's happening is you're paying $9,000. 7.5% of your income is going for the privilege and the opportunity of working. It's called employment tax. Your employer pays the other 7.5% of that for you, but you pay 7.5% of your income just for the opportunity of going to work, okay? I don't know, crazy. Next thing is you're also paying income taxes on the federal level. Now, using current tax rates, you're probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $12,000 in federal taxes. Ultimately, what that means is before you ever get a dollar to spend, you have to pay employment taxes, federal taxes, and depending on what state you live in, you're going to pay state taxes. So in this example, I'm going to have state taxes at 5%. What that ultimately means is after all taxes are paid for the year on employment taxes, federal taxes, and state taxes, you're making $120,000 gross, but your net amount after taxes is only $94,000. That means you only have the ability to spend $94,000. Now, if we take this a little bit further, okay, if you're saving today for the future, which if you're an empire builder, if you're someone committed to your future, you are. You're saving anywhere between 5%, preferably closer to 10, and if you're really on it, you're saving 20% of your income. What that would mean is if you're making $120,000 a year, you're saving $24,000, meaning you're putting it to the future. You're not actually spending it today. And then let's just assume, throughout the course of the year, you have about $5,000 to $6,000 of employment-related expenses. Think about wear and tear on your car. Think about the clothes that you wear to work versus the clothes that you wear at home. Think about going out to meals, lunch, and dinner. Think about all of the different expenses that go into just the opportunity that you have to show up to work Monday through Friday. What that means, if we back out taxes and we back out savings and we back out employment-related expenses of $6,000, what that actually means is you are actually taking home and having the ability to spend $64,000. That's your real nut. That's the real take-home amount. That's the amount that you're trying to replace. Now, what that means, my friends, if you can eliminate taxes from your future and build a system that's focused on income, not net worth, you are already 50% closer to your target than you previously thought possible. All we have to do is build a system capable of generating $64,200 a year, and we could exactly replace the lifestyle that we have today. Now, that might not be your ultimate definition of financial freedom, but inside of a game plan, when we help people build, launch, and scale their passive income machine, we start with the end in mind. We get super, super clear on how much income they want, how much income they need, and how much income they have to have. 3 different targets we set for them inside of a game plan. The first target that we set for them is financial security. You want to know that if everything fell apart in your life, you had enough money coming in to pay your mortgage, to put food on the table, and pay your basic utilities, the basic sustenance of life. Now, you might not be going out to eat. You might not be going and shopping at, Trader Joe's. You might have to live on some ramen noodles for a little while. But your financial security number is the first target that your game plan has to hit. You have to build a system big enough to handle covering the basic minimum expenses. I'll never forget for myself when I walked away from my corporate job after almost 5 years of implementing my very own passive income machine. I could not replace my complete lifestyle. I did not live lavishly. I did not travel the world when I first walked away, but I'll never forget when my boss told me that I had to go back on the road. It was about 5 years after 2008, and I had had a major life awakening that I talked about in episode 1, and so I won't relive that story for you here, but I'll never forget I had made a commitment in my life that no longer would I let my job be the dictator and the driver of my life. I was going to be the driver of my life. And from 2008 to 2012, almost 13, I had been building my passive income machine. I'd been putting money in vaults. I'd been using those vaults to buy real estate and just, cycling my money back and forth, buying real estate and building up my cash flow. And I'll never forget the day my boss walked into my office. He never came around. He only came around when there were problems or there were issues. And I remember he invited me into my office. He sat in my chair and he told me what was going to happen with my life. And I'll never forget Mr. Rob sitting there talking, and telling me about, the opportunity they had for me, the opportunity to make a little bit more money, but I was going to have to go back on the road. Now, prior to this, I had been on the road 80% of my working days. I was always on the road. And I remember as Rob was talking, telling me what was about to happen to my career without any say on my part, I was adding up in the back of my head all of the cash flow that I had coming in from the 17 properties that I owned at the time. And I realized, and again, I just kept adding it up over and over and over again, I realized that I had enough income coming in to replace my basic living expenses. I knew that if nothing happened, I had a long enough runway that I could reset and start over, and my family wouldn't be on the street. I had enough cash flow coming in from my system to pay my mortgage. I had enough cash flow from my system coming in to pay my light bills, to put food on the table, those basic minimum expenses. And I'll never forget what happened next. I never intended for this to happen that day, but as Rob told me about this promotion and having to go back on the road, he said, "Ryan, are you ready to do this?" And I hadn't really been paying attention to him. It kind of sounded like the Charlie Brown wah, wah, wah in the background because I was just adding up those numbers over and over again. And I said without even thinking that I was going to say it, I quit. Now, as soon as those words came out of my mouth, I wanted to take them and shove them back in my throat. I did not mean to say I quit that day, but I'll never forget the light. Like I just felt so light and so liberated and so free. I quit. No longer are you going to tell me what to do. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Now, that all sounds really good, but as soon as I quit and, Rob kind of tried to talk me back into it, I was done. I said no, and I had to walk out of the office and I had to pick up my phone. And I had to call my wife because she didn't know I was planning on quitting that day. I didn't know I was planning on quitting that day. And this is when you know you're married to such an amazing, supporting spouse. I called her up and I said, "Hey, Beth, I got some news for you." And I told her what Rob had told me, asked me to do, go back out on the road and, blah, 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 the promotion, everything. And I said, and I quit. And I waited. And you know what she said? She said, "It's about damn time." My friends, I now owned my life. I had built a financial system that could give me more options and more control over my time. I was financially secure. Now, the next target that you have to hit inside of your passive income machine is financial independence. And like I said, you are already 30 to 40 to maybe even 50% closer to your target if you just align your money with the principles of investing, with the principles that we espouse inside of the passive income machine. If you eliminate taxes rather than defer them, if you align your money with inflation and you use leverage, the greatest force multiplier that there is, you are so much closer. In this example I gave you, going from $120,000 to all I really needed was $64,000 a year to keep my basic living expenses alive. And then financial freedom This is the greatest adventure of life. Financial freedom is a game. Once you understand the rules of the game, you can choose at whatever level you want to play the game at. What this ultimately means is cash flow greater than expenses. If over time, like I have many, many times since I quit over a decade ago, Beth and I have chose to increase the cost of our monthly expenses. We've chosen to travel more often. We've chosen to take our kids on vacation. We've chosen to start going to Europe, me and Bethany, once a year. We've started doing all of these other things, but every time we make a decision to consciously increase our expenses, we begin on the left side of the equation first. We increase our cash flow up to a point that can cover the expenses that we're going to take over. Financial freedom is a lifestyle, my friends. It's not a destination like retirement. You don't wait for one day hoping that you have enough money with your fingers crossed. You can make lifestyle decisions at every step in the road by understanding A, how to create cash flow, B, how to create the most efficient stream of cash flow by eliminating taxes, and C, staying in integrity to operating your financial system to always staying free. This doesn't mean you get to do everything you want all at once. You have to make conscious strategic decisions. If you want to raise your expenses, how do you go back to the drawing board first and create a sufficient enough income stream to keep you ahead of the game, to keep you always free? Because once you're free, going back into servitude, going back into financial ownership to where your finances own you, it's the worst thing you could ever do. So my friends, in this video, and not in this video, but in this podcast, we talked about your financial freedom number. We talked about your strike number, how you can calculate by eliminating taxes and find out if you're 20, 30, even 40% closer than you previously thought possible. We have calculators, we have tools for this. I'll include one in the show notes to where you can calculate your very own strike number. That strike number is your target. That is what you're shooting for. And if you can start to focus your investing on investing in assets that produce real income over a prolonged period of time without having to sell the asset, you're so much closer. You're ahead of the game, because rather than putting your money in some account that you don't control, crossing your fingers and hoping that you'll have a big enough net worth, my friends, that game is mathematically unwinnable. If you're ready to start winning, start raising your financial IQ. I applaud you for being on this podcast with me today, because that's exactly what you're doing. So here's what I'm going to do. Join me on the next episode, because on the next episode, I'm going to be sharing the number one key to your financial freedom, the number one thing that all wealthy people have in common. And if you can step into this game, your wealth, my friends, becomes inevitable. All right, my friends, thanks so much for hanging out today. I really appreciate you tuning in. But before you go, if we talked about something today that made you want to take action, you need to get yourself registered for the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. It's the financial game changer that you've been looking for, teaching you exactly how to create passive income and financial freedom in 2025. Jump on it early, because we've got a special bonus waiting for you. All the details are in the link below, or head on over to retireintenyears.com. So get registered, and I'll see you at the summit.